Hi guys, this is Nathan, or Martial Law as I'm known on Telegram, doing an introductory video for my website Law-5.webnode.com, the one you can see on the screen at the moment. This site is about how the system works in order to be more empowered living within it, or how to be a free man on the land, as some people call it, not to be confused with the free men of the square mile, but I won't go into that. Before I get into the video though, I do have a quick question for you. If someone said to you, I have a secret which, once you know and understand, will mean, assuming there's no injured party that is, that you'll never have to pay police or council fines ever again, amongst other things, would you want to know that secret? I assume you would, and that you would not rather just carry on being stung by parking fines, speeding fines, or whatever else they want to throw at you. But I can only speak for myself, of course. And while we're on that subject, in fact, here is a COVID fine the police gave me for walking home from the supermarket during that really strict lockdown, where they said you're only allowed to go to the supermarket or to do exercise if you want to leave your house. That's the only, they were the only things we were allowed to do, apparently. That was a funny day. Anyway, it helps to know the secret I just asked you about, obviously. So that was sent to me by the Criminal Records Office, as you see. And if we go further down, we see that they so kindly offered to reduce the fee from £200 to £100 if it's paid within the 14 days that they gave me. Oh, how generous, eh? Now, if that doesn't restore your faith in humanity, I don't know what will. If we look further down, we'll see it is a long letter to begin with, but we'll go past my response here to their response to my response. So this is their second letter that they sent me, and you'll notice it says, as the 28-day time limit for payment has been to be made has now passed, and a payment to settle your fixed penalty notice has not been received, your details will now be forwarded to Metropolitan Police Service. You are now liable to be issued a single justice procedure notice in relation to this offence. So basically, the Criminal Records Office are offering me a criminal offence. Isn't that kind of them? But this is my second YouTube video, by the way. Oh, and remember to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so that you get notified of all the new videos I add later. But you can access this site here through my new website EmpowerYourLife.dev, which I've already done an introductory video on. And if you click the first of the 4 icons, so there's 5 icons, but 4 of them lead to individual sites. But if we click the first one here, that will take you to this site, or you can obviously type the address in there. You can change the .com to .page. They're both interchangeable endings. But well, first of all, you notice at the beginning of the address here we have HTTPS, and that's on both sites there. HTTPS. Well, the S there stands for secure, just to let you know they're both safe to visit. And in fact, that's why I bought the .dev ending rather than a .com or .co.uk, because unlike those endings, this one came with an automatic secure connection and no hassle having to set it up or renew it, etc. But as you can see here, it says learn the rules of the system. Click the image below and empower your status. So you can click that image or that button there, or that button there where it says view law website, and it says separate laws from regulations. So clicking those will take you to this website here, which a lot of you are already familiar with. This website originally started out as a website all on its own and was one of the first two websites I created, in fact, both during lockdown, or the Grand Awakening as I call it, because I see it as a time when many people came to a crossroads, a fork in the road if you like, and had to either choose to start questioning things about this global worldwide system or to not, and to just carry on going along with the status quo, but to commit fully to it by rolling up your sleeve to take the jab. But what do you think? Do you think that's accurate? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, it seems that at that time people were starting to wake up or become more conscious, as we used to say, before the term was hijacked by woke culture, that is, which, if you ask me, isn't woke at all, because unless I've got it confused, and excuse me if I have, but as I understand it, these people seek to wipe out certain parts of history from the history books rather than to learn from them. Well, that's exactly what Hitler wanted to do, and what the CCP and Communist China has actually succeeded in doing. But to be truly woke, if we use the term correctly, is about being first aware. It's about being aware first and foremost, rather than having a selective recall of history or a biased and uninformed perspective, which is why history is so important. And I have to big up Bob Marley for that one. Rest in peace, soldier. And as he rightly said in his song Buffalo Soldier, if you knew your history, then you would know where you're coming from. Then you wouldn't have to ask me, who the heck do I think I am? Oh, I am available for birthdays, weddings and bar mitzvahs, by the way, if you liked my singing voice there. And he got it right, of course, anyway. Knowing who we are is so important. You might have heard that before, or heard people asking, do you even know who you are, or saying that it's important to know who we are, etc. But what does that even mean, and why? Well, if you ask me, history of events leading up to present day give context and perspective to modern life, because things weren't always as they are today, obviously, but there are key events and developments that are important to know about how we've got to where we are today. And knowing our past is part of knowing who we are. That's why I've added certain videos on the first page of this site, actually, and some other pages. But even if you're not familiar with my site already, like you may have found it through a sticker or a flyer or a business card like the one you see here, or maybe you just stumbled across this video on YouTube, and welcome, by the way. But I can see how this all might be a little confusing to newcomers to begin with. Don't worry if it is though, as all is explained on the website if you read through it, and I will do a video later on to go through it with you. So if it's not already up by the time you're listening to this, watching this video, then look out for that one soon. But it's already here, as you can see, if you want to read it, and if you don't want to wait for the video. But unless you're living in a self-sufficient community somewhere in a cave in Shambhala in the center of the hollow earth, or off-grid growing your own food, making your own clothes, or possibly living in an Amish community, then we all live under the same global commercial system. I bet the older ones amongst you thought I was going to say we all live in the yellow submarine, right? Sorry to disappoint you there. But the point is, we definitely aren't taught the rules of the system, whether at school or anywhere else, unless we seek it out for ourselves. Or, well, at least not where I went to school anyway. Even though they're so important for us to know, and make no mistake, I won't go into it too much now, maybe in another video, but let's just say it was on purpose. The system is commercial in nature though. In fact, there's a great speech about that in a film called Network, made in 1976, which I want to show you a snippet of, as it explains it very well. Yep. So I'll play an excerpt from that film now.
There is only one holistic system of systems, one vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, rins, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet.
Right. There's a few good speeches in that film as it goes, including that one. But I recommend watching the whole film. But with a national debt in the billions in the UK, or the trillions if you're in America, politicians, who are the ones who are supposedly there to take care of it, however badly a job they might be doing, have to find ways of bringing in more revenue or of cutting expenditure to tackle that debt. Even though the best way, of course, would be to stop borrowing money from the banks at interest in the first place, and to create it themselves, create their own money create their own debt-free money. Although I use the term borrowing from the banks, that is loosely, but that, and also the reason why they would never create their own interest-free money, is another topic for another day and another video, because I address it on another page. What it all basically means though is that it's not in a minister's interest, for instance the Secretary of State for Education, to have schools teach us how the system works or the rules of the game, because they definitely don't want to empower us with that knowledge when we consider the fact that the interest on the national debt, this is the interest alone, is more than £5,120 per second, or more than £307,200 per minute, which equals £18,432,000 per hour, or £442,368,000 per day, right? Which is all going to the bankers that they supposedly borrow money from. So you can draw your own conclusions about that one and where their loyalties lie for now. But since they aren't going to teach us the rules of the system, we obviously have to take it upon ourselves to do so, right? So if the rules of the system sounds like something you'd like to learn, well, that's what I sought to do when I put this website together, to empower people by teaching them the rules of this system. Because although we don't want to treat life in the system in a trivial way, it is a game, much like Monopoly in fact. I'll explain more about that in my next video. But also, like a game, we can learn the rules, and once we get good enough at it, we can even start to have fun. And I have more stories about that. You know, I started to share one about the COVID fine earlier. But anyway, unlike a game, there are obviously real stakes if we lose. So I want to set you up to win, as this is a game we're all playing whether we like it or not, so it makes sense that we learn the rules of the system and set ourselves up to win while operating within it, right? Because we obviously don't want to play a game to lose after all, do we? And playing a game, for instance Monopoly, without knowing the rules, well, you're already at a disadvantage and could end up in Monopoly jail for landing on the wrong square, for instance. Just like not knowing the rules in real life could land you in real trouble. Getting into debt, for instance, affects people's lives in devastating ways. More than 100,000 people attempt suicide in England over problem debts every year, and these debts could have all been avoided if only we knew the rules of the game. So first of all, we have to know the difference between the laws, which are compulsory, and the rules, which aren't. Laws are compulsory because they're concerned with when someone is harmed or when fraud is committed, etc. Whereas rules or regulations, statutes, legislation, etc. are mostly just safety guidelines and are precautions. They're, or no, they are for precaution, I should say, because obviously speeding dangerously, drink driving or jumping red lights could cause accidents and even deaths, which they have, as we know, and there are reckless people around, and some of us do like to cut corners when we're in a rush too, obviously, so we might need a deterrent, for example double parking and blocking someone in who might then have to wait for us to return. So these guidelines are obviously needed in some situations and work quite well safety wise, but what's the point of charging someone for parking somewhere which isn't causing anyone hassle or harm, or for speeding 1 mile per hour over the limit? We're only human after all, so we all make mistakes, and I don't think people should be punished or penalised for a genuine mistake like that when no one was harmed. And in fact, the law says the same, whereas the rules and regulations don't. They say you get fined, because apart from the safety aspect, they're mainly just for profit, aka commerce. That's why an important aspect of this is learning the rules of commerce. But if we look into it, these rules are also mainly for governing and restricting public servants or employees of a corporation or people operating on behalf of one in order to protect mankind. So I'm saying the rules are there to protect mankind from damage by any corporations or public servants or civil servants, as some like to call themselves, working on behalf of a corporation or the government. So it makes sense that public liability insurance obviously has certain rules for an employee to adhere to in order to not invalidate that insurance, as you probably know. For instance, no drinking alcohol while on duty, as you could potentially cause someone harm, especially if driving or operating other machinery. So the company needs to cover itself from prosecution due to negligence, etc. But the manager of Starbucks can't exactly turn around to me or anyone else and say that we can't drink alcohol if we don't work for Starbucks, or even if we do, if we're not at work at the time. But we see signs up everywhere, and I've seen police telling people you're not allowed to drink alcohol here in a public place, for instance, and one even knocked a can out of my friend's hand while he was walking down the street, even though neither of them were drunk and disorderly and weren't breaching the peace or anything. So why is that? How are they able to tell people they can't do something in a public place which isn't causing anyone harm? They also fine people for breaking these rules, obviously, so they're basically extorting money out of people because of the national debt and the way these rules and regulations are set up with presumptions of law at play. But we'll go into that in my next video as I address it on the first page of this website, which I'll be doing the video on next. So our governments like to educate us to believe that authority comes from job titles like teacher, politician, policeman, prime minister, whatever, rather than from within. And they train us to follow orders from these people as if they're infallible, rather than to question authority when appropriate. And they'd rather we take less responsibility and put it all into their hands to let them make decisions for us, as they prefer a more pliable, easier to control population, obviously. So, one that pays their fines out of fear and the ignorance of self or ignorance of law brought about by that so-called education they provided us with. So we pass all our power over to them to govern us and allowed them to have all the power rather than us having any. Well, this website is basically for the people who, apart from not wanting to put people in danger, actually want to have more responsibility in their lives, not less. And hopefully I can help you to understand through my website and future videos that actually it is us, the people, that already holds the power. We just don't realize it, that we hold the power. But if that's not you, if you'd rather leave it up to the policemen or politicians, sorry, not policemen, to the politicians to decide what's good for us, even if it means life will keep getting more and more expensive due to the way they decide to control our money supply, and if you're happy to pay extortionate rising fuel, utility and food prices, as well as parking fines, income tax, council tax, and you name it, to support a corrupt, tyrannical government, meaning one that doesn't follow the law, but prefers to exploit legislation for monetary gain, then go ahead, because it's totally your choice. At least you know where to come back to if and when you're ready to change your mind. Or if, however, you are ready and you'd rather stand up against corruption and have more power in your life, which I assume you have if you stayed this far in the video, well, you've come to the right place. This site can help you do that. This site can help you become more informed and more empowered, or to have more power and control over your life. In case you're still not convinced of the corruption, though, I'll give you a real life example of it. There's a documentary on YouTube called Secret City about the square. Oh, it's called Secret City, a film about the city of London, which is about the square mile of London and is itself a state within a state. But when we watch the video, I'll show you a clip of it in a minute, we learn that the three accounts the city has, the city of London, are the city's cash, which is its private money, the city's fund, which is its public money, and the city's bridge, that's its charitable money. And they say this one hands out about £60 million a year in a good year. And then it continues, and all get about 250 million in interest, but we don't get to know what the principal is. It's never had to declare itself, but between 12 and 20 million pounds of it goes towards lobbying. Although there's an article I'll show you first here, as you can see, entitled Revealed, the 93 million city lobby machine. Look that up too if you want to read it. And getting back to quoting the film, we hear that's the City of London Corporation, has immense lobbying power over the British government and is the heart for the most important tax havens. And I'll let you listen to this snippet.
It's the only organisation that has an officer of the corporation actually sitting in the Commons chamber. The City Remembrancer has the right to sit in the Commons chamber.
What is deeply disturbing in terms of our democracy is the fact that the City has a representative sitting on the very floor of the House of Commons. He's called the Remembrancer, and he dates back many centuries to a long ago historical accident. But the really important thing is that he's there on the floor of the House of Commons, so he's able to, as debate goes on, wander around and whisper in MPs' ears. And probably even more importantly, is he's able to see every piece of legislation that comes out as it's being drafted. He can comment on it and influence it.
And indeed,
Right, no, I looked up the Remembrancer and found out that that position dates back to 1571, by the way, which makes sense why the film continues by saying, in fact, I'll let him.
If you look at the statute books, it's interestingly down the centuries, because every piece of Parliament, every piece of legislation that came before Parliament, there was a city standing on the side saying, oh, hang on, we want to have a look at that and see how it impacts us. Almost every piece of legislation on the statute books since Magna Carta probably mentions the Corporation of London, because it says, with the exception of the Corporation of London, or with respect to the Corporation of London, special provisions,
And
Yeah, and it continues, the Mayor of London even says that his role is to represent and promote the financial industries. We're now facing economic crisis, continuing the quote, as a result of finance capital, and not just its mistakes, but its ability to exploit our economy, building up huge debts, making massive profits, and as a result of that, brought about a crisis in our economy. These policies that enabled the city to do that started in the 1980s with Thatcher and the Big Bang. The Big Bang is an event which happened during the 1980s, and I continued, which completely deregulated the city because of the city's influence on her, meaning Thatcher. Anyway, watch that documentary if you want to see all of it. I'll put a link to it in the below this video, but that's a little example of something important to know from real history. But let's take a look at the index here on this website. As you can see, when you click more here in the drop down menu, I have a lot of pages, in fact so many that I can see that it might be overwhelming, and of course, because you can't read it all in one go, easy to lose track of. So to help with that, I've set up an email newsletter that you can subscribe to. If we come down further there, you can see it there, where you'll get sent a page to read every week. So if that's something you want, subscribe to my newsletter. Another part of knowing who we are and how we function in order to have better health is important too, and I've set up another website about that. That was the second one that I did during lockdown, which a lot of you are familiar with already. And I will be doing some videos to take you through that site too. If I haven't already by the time you view this one. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter for that one. And there's my other sites, they all my other sites here, but hopefully by now you can see I like to take a holistic approach to empowerment and to life, and these are all part of knowing who we are, as I think it's important to know where we fit in the grand scheme of things, which in fact is the main topic of the foundation notes, which I have been sending out to people. You can find them on this page. Hopefully I'll be adding them to the newsletter anyway. But I've been emailing them to people that requested them in the past. But anyway, if you don't want to just read the website, and if you want to be able to keep track of how far you've got and stuff, then you should subscribe to my newsletter. And to wrap this up, I'll just say thanks for staying with me to the end of the video, and remember to hit the notification bell when you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get notified of all my future videos. Take care, one love, and stay blessed.